So I have been missing for a while due to the combination of being busy and also just because there have been no balance patches, so not that much new stuff to make videos on, or so I thought, but apparently even without balance patch there is still some shifting in the meta. Notably for today's Sword is apparently playing a more slow late game based deck now, which is good because I don't really like playing the aggressive Sword deck. So since Sword is playing a slower deck now with the Evo package, it's my time to shine, so we're beginning to be playing Sword again for today. So let's look at the deck list I'm playing for today first. So this the list we're playing for today is not original. It comes from the Japanese Sword player and also just general YouTuber Ak, whose video I will link in the description. He plays quite a bit of Sword, so if you're interested in Sword, he is one of the options to look at. The list is mostly focused on the Evo package, so we're not running the early game cards. You can see the curve is a bit late game focused. You don't run that many early game cards here. The main goal of the deck is to use Seaphon, Candlephon, this kind of late game cards to finish late game, and then in order to survive up to then, you have cards like Cesar, which is just a generally strong bomb. Golden Knight helps you clear about while healing, which is quite good. And then we have a Tree Noel, which is not that common in Sword, although Noel is rising in popularity because of his ability to summon Drain while advancing your rally count, and the Storm can be useful as well. And we have one Candlephon here. Mostly you use him for a super late game win, so you don't really need more than one copy. You don't really want to draw him early on because unlike other Evo decks, or maybe not unlike them, but Sword really needs you to draw early game even though this is a late game focused build, so more than one Candlephon is a bit risky. And then one Shared Existence is just a tech card to help you clear annoying stuff like Willness and stuff like that, and also on the Enhanced 6 it helps you advance rally a little bit as well, which is quite nice. So yeah, this is what we're playing for today. Felt pretty good to me. I was playing it and I got to ultimate pretty quickly with just this deck. It took me like a day or two of just grinding guild chests, I guess. Yeah, pretty solid deck here, but let's look at the games we have for you today. So the first match I have for you is against Rune. Crystal Rune, one of the best decks in the format right now, if not the best deck in the format. Unfortunately, just because of how the deck works, if your opponent draws very well, there's like next to no chance you win the match. But I would say relative to other decks, Sword doesn't have too bad of a matchup in this because you have tools to pressure your opponent as well as just make it hard for them to find time to play Reaved Order, which is mainly what you want to do. For the early game mulligan, I keep 3 cost and below cards. Usually I don't keep Ambitious Small Timers, because I prefer having it in the late game rather than spending it in the early game anyway. Other than that, you secure like 2 early game followers, like a 2 cost card and a 3 cost maybe, or 2 cost followers, or the Orchestrated Silence. And then after that, you keep Medic. I will keep Medic just for the card draw after you secure early game. This like really needs the early game, so just keep that in mind. And then if you're going second, you can keep Gildara as well, because Gildara is quite strong on your Evo turn. So you drop Immetra here against Crystal Rune. There are like not exactly two, but like kind of like 2 approaches to playing this deck. Against Crystal Rune, you want to focus on a board-based, tempo-based approach. The main goal for this matchup is to force them to spend resources clearing your board, because that means they have no time to draw and do stuff like playing Reaved Order. The main goal is to stop them from playing Reaved Order. So if your opponent plays any not magical pawns, if your opponent plays any of the crystal spawns early game, you really want to clear as many of them as possible to make it hard for them to play Reaved Order. The other option is to just keep vomiting followers onto board and force them to trade, because that also makes it hard for them to find time to play Reaved Order. We make it so that if they want to play Reaved Order, they have to spend their cards trading into your... I mean, they have to allow your followers to live, and then you can keep shipping them in the face and then keep maintaining tempo. That's the idea. Alternatively, your opponent will have to play Behemoth General to clear your board, in which case they are spending an Evo point and 4 play points doing basically nothing, which is also very good for you. So either way, that is their main goal here, is just to keep making it as hard as possible for them to have free reign to advance their win con. If you manage to choke them out in the early game, you can usually finish them off in the late game, just because they won't have their powerful cards at the level that they want it to be to answer your stuff. Just keep applying pressure here, keep applying phase pressure. We don't have Mars in this deck, but they don't know that, so they have to be scared of taking too much face damage because, well, unless they know what deck we're playing, but depending on opponent, they might know, especially since this list specifically is from a YouTuber's video, so they might know what list this is, but either way, I would say that just keep applying pressure and make it as hard for them as possible to do the things they want to do. He managed to force them to play Shim here, which is quite nice. And then, unfortunately for them, they leave a follower on board here, which is free reign for me to drop Cesar here, keep applying pressure. Right now we haven't forced them to spend that many Evo points, which isn't great for us, but so we can keep trying here, we can use Cesar here to apply pressure. Thankfully we do have Seraphon here, which will allow us to sort of make a strong board even after we run out of Evo points. Here's my Shim. If you saw my opponent play Wreath Order there, they only drew one card. Wait, or they haven't played Wreath Order. I think they play Wreath Order here. Yeah, they'll play Wreath Order here. You can see they only draw one card. That means that they have all... That is their last copy of Calculated Flyer that they just drew, so they have the other two copies in their hand in this counter already. So you can see, even though my opponent didn't get to play Wreath Order earlier in the turn where they had the Living Crystal Spawn, I think it balances out with the fact that they just had Calculated Flyer anyway, so... Yeah. My opponent is forced to play that second Calculated Flyer here to answer my board here. They have to play around Seraphon here, even though they might not know that we have Seraphon in here. If they don't clear this board with Seraphon and then they have to do something or they die to Mars, and which they don't know that we don't have Mars, right? So the safest play for them here is to focus on clearing my board here so they don't take too much damage. You can see they're very low right now. And on average, they're only healing for about 5 from their spell right now, so they can't take too much of a risk right now. So I guess that's why they heal. I mean, that's why they spend the second Calculated to clear my Clan Knight here. We are gonna continue to keep up pressure here by using the ambitious small timers as well as Seraphon. We can also draw into our deck here and invoke Sandalphon just to find our late games cards that can continue to pressure them. Before I start here, my opponent has Rune Portal, so they will be able to clear this board and heal out a bunch, which isn't great for me, but it's not too big of a deal because it means they didn't really do much else this turn, which is quite weak from them. We're going to just drop Cesar here, force an answer out of them so that we can keep pressuring them and then look for a finish here with Seraphon to advance Sandalphon, or we can use Gildara plus some extra stuff to chip them down. Even though my opponent ran out of answers, their third Calculated, I guess, isn't discounted enough, so they end up using Crystal Spawn to heal and then they trade. So here we just have a lethal with Bunny Baron and Gildara. Even if we didn't top deck Bunny Baron, we would probably have been fine with stuff like Gildaria. I mean with Seraphon into Sandalphon and Gildaria, so that's it for this game. Our next match here is against Dragon. This version is not as good in the Dragon as the aggressive version is, obviously, because you just don't have enough Storm cards to chip them down and kill them before they get their strong cards. So if you are playing against a lot of Dragon, you might not want to play this version of the deck, but it's not unwinnable either. It's just like a little bit of a maybe unfavored, maybe about even, I guess, somewhere around there. Once again, like similar to Crystal Rune, if your opponent draws the nuts, there's not that much you can do about it, but we can try our best. Opponent's gonna go ahead and coin Dragon Sign here, which is fine. We're just gonna go and keep developing followers on board here to pressure them. The question of whether to pop Orchestrated Silence, if you see a lot of rally cards in hand, maybe you don't have to pop it and you can just hold on to it. But in this case, our hand is quite heavy and there's not much rally going on, so most likely we're not going to be able to play the Orchestrated Silence for rally 10, so we'll just go ahead and play it now. Get a Steel Clad Knight here, we can see what we can do with it. My opponent does have Dragon Heal promoted here, which unfortunately will allow him to clear my board. Dragon is another matchup that you sort of want to try to apply as much pressure as possible because it's very hard to imagine you're gonna be able to make it to the late game in this matchup because they have so much more power than you in the late game. So yeah, we try to pressure them on board. I didn't play Okita Soji here because if they play like Galamiu or Zoe here, Okita Soji is my only way of clearing it. So yeah, that was the idea. Unfortunately for my opponent, I guess they didn't have it, but they still ramp, which is annoying for me. Bunny Baron here, we're gonna go ahead and play that and evolve. My opponent is about to enter 7 play points. At that point, they can start sending Galamiu and Sagatsumatsu into my face. So in order to not let them do that, we go ahead and play Bunny Baron here and evolve it as well. The evolution is to pick up the spell in case we need to clear Willness, which is also a reasonable expectation to have to deal with. So yeah, against Dragon, you sort of have to play around what your opponent probably wants to do in order to try to win. Strike distance here is great. Usually you want to save that for a Intimidate threat, but in this case we have Cesar and we have Desperado shot, so we're not too worried about Intimidate. So we'll just go ahead and play that for rally. Opponent has Burn Knight on curve as well, which is great for me, but what can you do? You can go ahead and super evolve their Burn Knight as well to give us the crest. Unfortunately, this deck does not have enough healing to outrun the timer in most cases. Go ahead and drop Cesar here and clear the Burn Knight. Usually, the gameplay pattern for Dragon, there's a lot of very like classic patterns in Dragon. One is when they're about to reach 7 play points, you play a bunch of followers to stop them from playing a Takatsumatsu phase. And then another one is after they drop Burn Knight, you drop Cesar in response and make a board here, which makes it a bit hard for them to drop Urns. Honestly, based on my hand, if they drop Urns, I probably just die, but they don't know that, so yeah, that's the idea. And since they already spam Burn Knight, we are basically banking on them not having another Burn Knight. You can see they only drew 11 cards, so the chance of them having Burn Knight is quite low. I'm gonna go up for Lorelei here. It was super evolve for Lorelei as well, which is fine by me. You go ahead and take out the Cesar here. And you use the the depths of the L blades, I guess, to just heal up while dealing damage to me. We take some damage here. We don't want to die, so we go ahead and play Golden Knight here. I ended up super evolving Golden Knight here. I don't know if this is the correct play, honestly, but it's what I ended up doing. The idea is that super evolve Golden Knight here plays around like most possible board clears besides like Burn Knight, which they probably don't have since they didn't play it last turn. And we can keep the Desperado shot here in case they drop a surprise Willness or something. And otherwise, it's a bit hard to clear Golden Knight here. I guess you can use Sagatsumatsu, but then like the Sagatsumatsu is going into one of these knights instead of my face, which is like good for me. In this case though, we managed to force our opponent to use Adrenaline Promoter and the last Evo point to evolve Gilna Leaf to clear my board here. End up leaving the Golden Knight alive as well, which is fine. Now this spot is quite interesting because we have a lot of free reign to do anything we want. Unfortunately, we are one shot of lethal because we don't have our super evolve. So Noelle plus Evo is exactly 13 damage, so they are one off. You might be tempted to go for it anyway, but you have to remember that Zoe exists. So the most important thing right now is to make sure we don't die to Zoe stalling out the crest and then finishing us off with like a Galamew plus Blood of the Crest Battle or something like that. What is it called? Lightning Strike, Slough of the Crest Battle, yes, I got it correct. So actually, from my perspective, the most safe play here is just to go Golden Knight. This way, we can make sure to heal up, so even if they have Zoe, so we want to heal up as much as possible. If they go Zoe here, they can hit me in the face. We play Noelle and then evolve the Drain and trade. So if we play Noelle here, we lose healing, and then we might die to a combination of Zoe plus extra, so we take a healing here while we can get it, and then we keep hitting them in the face here, keep forcing them to answer our board here. I can see there's the Zui that we were playing around here. Take the hit here. So at this point we have Noelle to heal. If we didn't have Noelle to heal here this turn, we would have taken a lot more damage. We would have been we would be an 8, which means that Galamew plus Sloth plus Burn Knight's Crest would have killed me next turn. So having Noelle here is very I wouldn't say lucky since it's what we planned for, but oh yeah, we can heal and then my opponent doesn't have lethal anymore, so they just concede. The last match I have for you is against Sword, and this time we are going second. Early game as usual, just keep the early start. I kept Metronomic Medic here because I'm expecting to coin it. I don't know if that's the correct play, but I think I was just being frustrated that I just never draw any card draw and lose games that way, so I kept Metronomic Medic here. You can consider it tossing it for more early game, because as you can see, I end up having to pass early game here. My opponent is running Quick Blader, which means they might be playing a more aggressive build. We don't quite know. Maybe it's a one-off. I'm not really sure. As in Metra as well, unfortunately we are forced to pass here. We could coin High Strung Liaison. But we have no good turn 4 play. We really don't want to play Seraphon on turn 4, so we are saving the coin here even though we have to take more damage because of it. Just Steel Clad Knight from my opponent. They will go ahead and keep hitting me in the face here. If I had known I'll draw Gildara, I would have coined the Liaison, but I wouldn't know that. So this turn I coined the Steel Clad Knight to get some board presence going to hopefully force my opponent to trade instead of hitting me in the face. My opponent's gonna clear some of my board and then hit me in the face, which is not great. We're gonna go ahead and go for Gildara here. It doesn't full clear, but we can try our best. Evolve Gildara here. Make sure to get rid of this operative because the operative evo effect is quite strong. And then we focus on trading here to just not take too much damage because we are quite low. And we are playing a late game oriented deck anyway, so we can sort of take the game a bit slower. You can see my opponent is a bit low on resources and they're playing quite aggressively as well, which makes me think that if we can just stall them out, we can hopefully look for a way to turn the game around in the late game after our absolutely terrible early game, I guess. When play Machinoli Med here, heal up as well as clear their followers. We have Seraphon, which is quite good because in the mirror match, Seraphon is very strong no matter what version of Sword you're playing against. My opponent has Machinoli Medic of their own, which is quite unfortunate for me because that means they have recovered their resources after burning through so much to chip me down. I'm calling Cesar here. Sword doesn't have good ways to clear Cesar. Like Natna and Vincent is like the only way, but that's if they're running it, which they might not be. So go ahead and just force an answer out of them here, I guess. I'm sure my opponent goes for a Cesar of their own, which I don't have a good answer to as well, because as I just said, Sword doesn't have good answers to Cesar. We're not running Natna in this deck. Go ahead and trade here, and then we just go for it and use Bunny and Baron. This is quite bad for us actually because we have no good answers to their board next time, depending on what they do. I chose not to open the Orchestrated Silence. Arguably, I think I probably should have opened the Orchestrated Silence here because I need stuff to pair a Seraphon to make sure I have an answer to their board next turn. So I chose not to open it because I didn't want to mill my top deck, but if they play like a relatively strong board next turn, I really needed to open this up so I can do something like get Metra plus the 2 knights plus Seraphon, but in this case I didn't. I got built up on my top deck, but yeah, if I had opened up the knights this time, if I got knight, get Metra Seraphon and clear everything, it would have been a bit bad since like I leave my board open, but I would have at least been able to clear the board here instead of having to rely on the top deck here. But I do get built out in the end, so that's nice for me. If you can afford to, you do want to play around Mars, especially if your opponent showed you a quick blader already. Unfortunately, in this case, I don't really have a good way to play around Mars, so if they have Mars, we just have to take the damage. So my opponent drops in Metra plus 2 high strong liaisons. This is the play of someone who has very strong rally payoffs in hand and they're trying to set them up, so we have to watch out for that here. We are at 9 health, which means that Gildara plus Bunny Baron plus one of these knights that they have in their hand is lethal, so we have to heal here, so we go for Golden Knight. It's also our only way to clear that board anyway, so I guess we have to go Golden Knight anyway, but yeah, this is just so necessary. Let's Gildara for my opponent. A bunch of damage here. They play the Steel Clad Knight and another Steel Clad Knight. And Yin Metra as well. And they'll use Depths of the Evo Sword as well to make sure that they can keep their Gildara alive, I guess. Once again, we are dead to Gildara plus Bunny Baron, so we have no choice but to use Golden Knight to heal here. We do open them up to save like some Seraphon shenanigans, but we also have a Seraphon of our own plus Nelclaw Lieutenant to pair with it, so that's not too bad worst case scenario. Some reviews they have Zeta Bay here. Thankfully no what's his face? No Seraphon to pair with it for me to take more damage here. You can see my opponent once again. I am within range of of Gildara plus Bunny Baron plus one more, but my opponent has... I think they've already played all the Steelclad Knights. They have one Steelclad Knight of this Orchestrated Silence and two of the Liaisons, which means that they've already played all the Knights. Which means the only lethal pattern they have here is Gildara Bunny Baron plus Quick Blader. If they have that, we can't really do anything about that, so we just have to give out on that. But otherwise, we go for Seophon here to set out a massive board that they hopefully can't answer. You can see that we go for the wards here. The 5 health is very good because it stops Golden Knight from clearing them, so that's pretty nice from us. But then goes for Sharpware Operative and Cesar as well. This looks pretty good for us since they are unable to answer this board. But realistically speaking, if they still like have Bunny, Baron, and Gildara, and for some reason top deck Quick Blader, I'm still dead. So even though it looks like we're pretty advantaged in this position, it's not actually that good. Also, I misplay here. I should have played Depths of the Sword first. I missed 1 damage because of it. But don't mind it. It's just 1 damage. Let's Gildara for my opponent here. And that's Bunny Baron as well. So if they had Quick Blader here, I just die. But thankfully they didn't have Quick Blader, so I just barely live on 1 here, and they are unable to clear this board properly, so they are just dead. Yeah, they're just dead on board here. But just to, I guess, put in a bit of extra safety, I just play a Cesar here and buff them. So that's it for this game. So those are all the games I have for you today. Hopefully it gave you some idea of how this deck works. If you want to see more gameplay, again, I will link the original creator of the deck arc, his video, in the description, so feel free to check that out. I do like this deck a lot more than the front-loaded version of Sword. However, it doesn't really solve Sword's like major problem that I just don't like how it feels in Worlds Beyond, is that if you run too many early game cards, this deck doesn't have the card draw to make sure you can find your late game bomb. So if you run too many early game cards, you have this game where you just, at the late game when you are low on cards, you just start top decking random crap like Metra and Sharpware Operative that don't do anything in the late game. Alternatively, if you run a list like this where you run a heavy load of like late game cards to make sure you have late game power, you have games where you just like draw nothing in the early game. You have to pass turn 2 and 3, which is not great. Original Shadowverse had like stuff like Victoria's Blader, like late game cards that could accelerate to summon followers to solve that problem. This current list just doesn't have it. So yeah, I'm not super big fan of how Sword feels in Worlds Beyond right now. So yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there, I guess. Honestly, I haven't been having too much fun with the game in general. It feels like sort of like a slog right now. The meta isn't like... Well, the meta's not that bad, but it's just not very fun, and no balance patches is a bit lame. So yeah, honestly, if they flop next set, I might consider just quitting the game. But for now, I'll just keep playing, I guess, and see where the game goes. So yeah, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.